Hey, and welcome to the Get More Students podcast. I'm your co-host, Alex Asher, CEO of LearnQ.
And I'm Herbert Gozer, founder of herbertgozer.com.
And today we're answering quite an interesting question, mainly because it's not only a fun thought experiment for Herbert and I, but literally we're constantly asked by new entrepreneurs in tutoring and language education, how do I start marketing from scratch? So that's literally what we're going to be talking about today, is starting from scratch and how to market a new tutoring business. One of the reasons, Herbert, we're talking about, because certainly on the LearnQ front, we specialize in a virtual classroom software and an online school for tutoring and language companies. So we're constantly asked, not just by established businesses, but particularly, people in the very early infancy of their businesses, can I use your service? Am I ready for it? And also, how do I go about starting? And that's the bit we're really going to be focusing on, is the marketing piece there. And Herbert, again, likewise, I know that you focus more on more established businesses because they can afford an expert that helps them with Facebook advertising advice. But you're exposed a lot to startups that are asking for more information, aren't you?
Absolutely. And even, one-person businesses, independent teachers and tutors seeking advice on, how to market their new school, their language programs, their tutoring services. I've definitely seen quite a lot of different niches and different setups, and also come across many successful tutoring businesses that are really doing quite well with their marketing. So really excited to share some insights today.
Definitely. So what we think we're going to do today is talk about, how a tutoring entrepreneur can start with their marketing. We are going to be focusing on basically kind of setting up two key areas that you need to think about when starting the marketing side of your business. Now, if you haven't already and you're a startup entrepreneur, please check out our previous episode. We talk about, I think it's called how to market a new tutoring business, or what was the name of it, Herbert?
Probably how to start an online tutoring business. We had before. But we have had a lot of podcasts on how to market language and tutoring programs, as well as using free marketing. So definitely check those out.
Yeah. But the one I wanted to focus on was, what it takes to start a business, because that kind of goes into setting up your vision, setting up your mission, really understanding why you're in business, your positioning. So all of this stuff you should have already figured out before you get to this episode, which is going to be on the marketing side, because you would already have those foundations. But now in terms of the marketing side, we're going to talk about two, and actually Herbert coined this, I loved it, which was two stages. You're going to have the main stage of your marketing efforts, and you're going to have the back stage of your marketing efforts. And I thought this was a really clever way of thinking about your marketing efforts. And we're going to talk about the two. The main stage is what we're really going to be focusing on, is this idea of experimenting. When you're starting out, the most important thing is that you get to product market fit. And so this main stage is all about you uncovering that product market fit. Whereas the back stage is all about you building your organic reach, and that, I guess, the foundations, or what will become the foundations of your whole marketing strategy. Herbert, do you have any kind of high level insights before we kind of get cracking into this?
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to definitely talking about the main stage and kind of setting things up so that you can go out and experiment. I think a lot of new teacherpreneurs struggle with how to set everything up and what is the first step. So happy to give at least some tips and what we have seen works.
Yeah. Now, one thing you're always going to hear Herbert on, and I'm going to back him up again, there is no point in you listening to anything further if you haven't gone through the process of identifying which niche you want to begin with. Because otherwise, you're just going to be shooting completely in the dark.
Mm.
So you should really have at least, not that you're fixated on it, particularly if you're early on, but that you've at least gone through that process of figuring out which niche you feel that you can help the most. Because in this main stage, your whole goal is to uncover your product market fit. And that means one market and one product. And the reason we thought this was a fun conversation was this idea of, if Herbert and I had nothing else that we wanted to do other than start a tutoring business, and we had very little money, and we had no real customers or network to kind of just immediately start from, how would we approach it? And we thought that was not only an interesting way of talking about it, but it's one that I'm sure a lot of our listeners here are actually going through, is how to start from scratch. And so the main thing that we touched on, and actually both Herbert and I are entrepreneurs in this sense, that we've had to take business, LearnCube in terms of the virtual classroom, and Herbert, your business in terms of the marketing agency. But we've had to test, and the number one thing that we needed to know was, are people going to pay for whatever our products and services?
Exactly. That is the number one question, right? Do people want what I have to offer? And will they pay for it?
Yeah, particularly will they pay for it? Because I remember I've had a number of other startup ventures before, Herbert, and I was like dead sure that people would love what I had to offer. And some of them did. They loved what I had to offer, but they were not willing to pay 1 cent for what I had to offer. And so I couldn't sustain a business. I couldn't live that dream because nobody was willing to fund that or to pay for that, which I think in today's age is obviously a must, and people vote with their wallets. So I think it's also a strong sign. If people are not willing to pay for what you do, you have not shown enough value to that end customer.
Definitely. Yeah, and I mean, the process that we're going to discuss today is pretty similar to the one that I went through not too long ago when starting the advertising agency. So, I speak from personal experience.
Yeah.
It also applies to education businesses.
Definitely. So what I think people forget is they glance over this because they're like, oh, people are buying tutoring anyway. So obviously there's demand for it. And that's not what you're talking about. You're not saying, is there demand for tutoring? What we're saying is, do people want your particular service and the way that you deliver it at the price you want to deliver it to the people that you want to deliver to and you want to serve? And that's the big differentiation between just demand for tutoring services and a product market fit where your particular service is chosen over others. So the key thing that we want to get across, main stage, is to experiment to uncover your product market fit. And the most important assumptions are going to be the product itself, the market itself, and pricing. And if you get those three things in order, then you're ready to go into the delivery section, which we'll talk about later. So let's talk about the first one. What would you start with, Herbert? What's the first test that you would create, and how would you go about it?
Right. I mean,
let me actually make a differentiation. You let's say you have, I don't know, let's call it $600 or $700 to put into this. What would you spend that money on to be able to start your venture?
Right. I would create a one-page website. I know that some people don't need a website to sell their services, but personally, I like to have an online presence where I can direct people to. It's just like a business card online, and so they can see who I am, what I have to offer, and they can contact me in an automated way. And so I would create a one-page website. For example, you could use Lead Pages, which is a leading landing page software, and you can start free for 14 days.
Yeah, I also think that you could use a Facebook page as well. Again, they're free.
That's right.
One thing that I think has changed, I've definitely been in the past being like, you could do it without any website. You just only have a Facebook page. And I don't feel that that's true anymore. And I think it's because when I was starting with my business and businesses previously, Facebook, everyone was on it. Everyone was on it, and so it
Mm.
really felt like you were going to find your audience. And I really feel that so many people are not on it anymore. I know that I've really discontinued my use of Facebook, and I know that a lot of people are spending a lot more time on, say, Instagram, or they're only looking on Google, or they're only using Messenger on Facebook. But it feels that a Facebook page doesn't have quite the same value as it used to, whereas a web page is a universal. That is something I write something in the internet on Google and I can find it. So I really feel that a lead page, which you brought up, and we actually use that ourselves at LearnCube, is a really smart way of creating that first page. But tell me how a lead page, like lead pages work. We're using a brand name here, lead pages, but there are other services that do a similar thing.
Like Unbounce. I mean, you could even start a Wix page, or any of those free services. But Lead Pages is really great because it's a drag and drop system. You can have really strong call to actions, which we'll talk about in a second, and for capturing leads, and kind of that's our first goal really is to see if we can get people to that first stage. It's not even purchasing or registering in a course or a tutoring program. It's to see if they're interested and to have a discussion with us. That's why a service like leadpages.com is so valuable.
I totally agree with that. So again, just to clarify, Lead Pages is about not only creating, let's call it your web page easily, but it allows you to also test multiple versions of a web page. And that's the critical difference, is if you create a website, or particularly you ask somebody else to build your website, being able to change how that looks, the content you use, the messaging you use, not only can it be a little bit harder, but you don't get the information as easily as to whether whatever you did had a positive outcome.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've definitely made mistakes on myself in the past is this: when you create an experiment, only one thing can change. When you start, actually, I kind of throw that out the window because you're literally just seeing if anything sticks.
Sure.
But as soon as you're past the point where you're at least getting some kind of metric that tells you you're partially in the right direction, the next step is only change one thing. So it could be you change a color, I would actually ask probably more focus on messaging, like words rather than coloring before you even start.
Yeah.
But
don't even worry about buttons and color.
Yeah, maybe changing the headline or changing the kind of key part of your value proposition. But those are the things you're changing, but only one at a time. And here's the problem. When you're starting out, you don't have a lot of money or enough traffic to run lots and lots and lots of different experiments without spending a lot of money. So you kind of need to make the call on what you're going to experiment on. And actually, Herbert, you probably have some advice on this.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the greatest things is to model successful tutoring businesses. This is something that we do with the ads agency all the time. We when we get a new client, we have a look at what the market is doing, the key players, what's working, and usually we have a good gauge on what's working because, for example, if a business has run an ad for months or years even, then, we can be pretty sure that ad is doing well or performing. And so we can take inspiration from that, never copy, of course, but, what parts are working. Maybe the sort of catchy headline, and then you have a video of yourself introducing your services, and then some testimonials, for example. The layout is a good way to model. I would absolutely do research, and then get your sections together and create them on Lead Pages.
Fantastic. So step one, use Lead Pages or a similar service to be able to create your one pager, always and possibly a Facebook page if you want as well. Sure. And treat it in exactly the same way. So in that about section, make sure you're kind of describing what is about you, your story, your service, and what makes you different. Not just, don't spend. I'm also probably going to go into things. Don't spend money on a logo or anything crazy like that.
No, gosh, no.
All you need to do is use your own personality, use your own personal name initially, and because all you're trying to do is match the product and the market. So what call to action is there? What's the one thing that people are going to use as the determination of whether that page is a success?
I mean, for tutors, I would say a free trial class is going to be the one. I mean, that's your main kind of lead generation tool is to get people to test your services. And if they fill out a form, if they schedule a time for a free trial, then you know that there is interest, and then you can go from there.
No, I think that's totally bang on. With LearnCube, we have so many of the language schools and tutoring companies we work with. They have free trials. It is a well-known way of getting like high quality and very educated buyers into the funnel. Now, let me just caveat that as well. If you send really low quality traffic to this is the great way of losing lots of time and having lots of no-shows. So critically, when you create a free trial, don't make it free in terms of they only have to put in their email. You want to have the whole reason I really like a free trial is it gives you contact. You're buying contact and actual one-on-one time with prospects. Whereas if you actually automated this and said buy now, that's terrible because all the people that don't buy, you have never had a contact with them. You have no idea why they didn't buy. Whereas a free trial, during that time, you could be like, hey, what did you think about my website? Like, what brought you along? You can build that rapport and ask questions that you would otherwise, people wouldn't give you the time of day for.
Exactly. And feedback is the number one thing when starting off. You need feedback from prospects in order to adapt, in order to change your messaging, your offer, your pricing, whatever that is. The more people you talk to, the better.
That's brilliant.
Qualified people,
So to do this, we've told you how to make a one-pager. That call to action will be a button. And on that button, make sure that you create it as a conversion event in that lead page. Just Google how to do it if it's in lead pages, or if you're using another service, there'll be a way of just making sure that you're measuring if somebody clicks on that conversion button. Because on that conversion button, you're going to want to show one of two things. My preference is actually to use a service called Calendly. Again, there are alternatives to Calendly, but they'll take you to an easy way for somebody to schedule a time. Now, Calendly is a service that provides basically a calendar, and you set your own availability, and it connects with your own calendar. And one of the reasons I like it is, they've got a free version, and you can have one free live event, and it's free as long as you like. And one of the reasons that's important is a free trial is going to be for the same duration. So you only need that. You only need their free tier. It costs you no money. And you can just start seeing if people are going to book you. Now, the thing that I would caveat this is the alternative would be a form, but in Calendly, I'm almost sure you can set questions.
You can.
I don't know can you make them mandatory?
Absolutely. Yes.
If you can make them mandatory, then you definitely do that. And what are the things that you put in that initial form? Let's start with the absolute minimum, Herbert.
Name, email address, country. And then you want to ask some kind of pre-qualifying questions. You want to know a little bit more about this prospect before you get on the call so you can prepare. That could be something like, what is your occupation? Why do you need tutoring services, or what are your goals? You want to get that why and why they are scheduling a call with you, and then you can already prepare for solutions for them during the free trial.
Yeah, and it's also going to give you, you've now got some measurable data, right? Now, we are going to be talking about the marketing funnel soon, so I'm going to come back to this, but just wanted to put a pin in this idea that the questions that you put in that initial form before somebody schedules the time for you, you can use that as a way of increasing the quality of the people that attend your trial classes. The longer the form, the more information, the higher the quality lead. The more information you put in there, though, the fewer people will actually do a trial class with you. So you want to start with a nice balance, maybe start at a low level where you've captured, as Herbert says, like name, email, country is very important, because it's very important to understand where your customers or prospects are coming from. And then probably the number one is, could just be as simple a capsule. Actually, you don't want to just say, tell me why you're interested in my tutoring service, because otherwise people might just put a dash and then leave it blank. You need something that somebody has to tell you something about why they're in it. What would you say that question is, Herbert? It's got to be at least one question.
What are your
what are your learning goals?
What are your learning goals? Probably.
Yeah, because you've already got country and learning goals then. So I think that's already kind of helpful. You may want, those learning goals might even effectively tell you the age. You might not need to ask or want to ask the age, but for example, if it's learning for a test, they're probably, a school test, that they're not going to be an adult, for example. And so at least, even if they never show up at that trial, okay, this person from this country or these people from these countries looking for this goal don't show up. So probably I should discount them from the kind of marketing pool that I'm going for.
I mean, another question which I think I have on my form is, when are you ready to start?
Nice.
That time factor. So, all right, immediately, or is it in a few months? Is it next year? That's a pretty good question to ask as well. And that's so it also gets the prospect thinking, all right, actually, am I ready to start now? Or, I'm going to wait.
Yeah. And one of the great things is if they say 6 months, no problem. Now you've also got a reason to reach out to them in 6 months' time with the email that they've already provided. So that's not going to be a problem either way. So we've got the one pager, we've got one call to action. It goes to a trial class, which they can book through Calendly. What happens next to Herbert? How do we get people to this lead page?
Right. Traffic. Let there be traffic, right. I mean, there are many ways of driving traffic to your new website or landing page. I mean, time is of the essence here, right? Because in order for you to make a decision as to whether or not you have product market fit, you need data. You need traffic. You need people to go through your landing page and to book a free trial if that's what they want to do, if it's compelling enough. And you need to get on calls with people. So I guess the fastest way of driving traffic would be paid traffic. So running some sort of campaign. Whether that be through Facebook, Instagram, Google, YouTube. Exactly. I would recommend Facebook, Instagram, just because one, you'll have cheaper traffic versus Google, and you can be more creative with your advertising.
I think that's the big point for me. Like, Google will get you more people with a lot more intent. But it's so competitive that you're really not knowing why somebody hasn't purchased with you or clicked on your ad. Whereas I feel Facebook, not only does it have that targeting, but I think you're going to have a lot more creative license to be able to try things and really push your personality, because that's what you're selling initially anyway, is your personality.
Exactly.
And you just can't do that through a Google ad.
No, not at all.
It's a totally different sell and a different part of the buying cycle. Now, we had a little bit of think about this before, Herbert, in terms of the minimum you'd need to spend. And here's this. I'm going to say it. You do need to pay for this traffic. Why? Because you don't have months and months and months and months to be able to build enough organic data to be able to know whether or not you've got product market fit. And when Herbert and I looked at our own cost per click with our own Facebook ads, we kind of think that you're probably going to have to spend about $500 to get 500 visitors from that have clicked through your ad. And so it's going to be $500 for you to be able to know more or less, is what I've even got something that people want.
Mm. But I think it's a good investment.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, if you've got the time, if to build organic traffic over 6 months and be consistent about it, then by all means go ahead. But I assume you want to get things running as soon as possible and know for certain that you're going after a market that wants what you're offering. So I think running this little experiment with an ad campaign on Facebook and Instagram could be a really good idea for a lot of people.
Yeah. I also think it's actually a much better experiment. And again, apologies if you don't have that money. I totally understand. But here's the other reason why it's good to spend that money up front rather than spread it out, say over 6 months. Like $500 in 1 month is going to get you much better information, much faster with a much lower cost to you compared to $100 a month. And Herbert, you've talked about this with me before as well. There's a point where you're just not getting enough data each day. And also you're then getting really seasonal data. So what worked for you, let's say that you started this in January, maybe you're getting different results from the same ad just because of the seasonal difference. My buying thought process in January is totally different to my buying thought process in June.
Absolutely. Yeah, and as you said, $100 a month, or even I know that some people, some businesses spend or test at $50 a month, but you're not going to collect reasonable data in order to make a decision as to whether or not it's the right path for you. So it's better to spend that budget in a shorter period of time.
Yeah. So what we're really getting at here, if you haven't looked at marketing funnels, it's again an area we'd really encourage you to look at your own research. And again, there's so many free resources on Google. So there's lots of ways that you can get help. And of course, listen to these podcasts and go to the Get More Students webinars as well, which we run once a month. But in the end, you're going to have a marketing funnel. And this is what Herbert and I have sort of done for you, is it might look like this. You spend your $500 and you get 500 visitors. And from those visitors, you're going to get a certain number of people that look at your one-page website and they say, yes, I'm going to try a free trial with Herbert, for example. And we reckon you're probably only going to get maybe even 4 or 5 people out of those 500 visitors that are actually going to sign up for a free trial. So it's costing them nothing, but remember that they're paying for their time. So that's why sometimes you're surprised why people don't buy for free. They're still making an investment, whether they use your free trial or somebody else's. But let's say 500 visitors turns to 4 free trials. Maybe you get 2 purchases. And the next thing to figure out is what is the value of each of those purchases, each of those students. And it's really important not to think of what do they buy in terms of their first package. It's important, like let's say that they only buy 5 classes. That doesn't mean that their lifetime value is 5 classes times the price per class. Let's say it's $20, which would be $100. Lifetime value is different. And Herbert, how do you normally kind of you can look on Google again for a much more detailed version of lifetime value, but a simpler version, Herbert, do you have one?
Absolutely. I mean, I can tell you what we use as lifetime value is how much a customer spends with you over their lifetime.
Okay.
So it's revenue.
Right. And so typically the easiest way for you to kind of estimate this is the number of tutoring weeks times the number of classes they do or sessions they do with you each week times the price per class. So for example, let's say you're starting out, you haven't got much. Let's just say you know that you're going to have to do more in terms of improving the service to be able to improve retention over time. But basically let's say it's 8 weeks, 2 months that they're going to stay with you. Each week they're going to do 2 sessions with you. So it'll be 8 times 2. And let's say that your price per class is $20. Then that means your total lifetime value of each tutoring student is going to be $320. So if we push that back into the marketing funnel, 500 visitors, 4 trials, 2 purchases, that's now $640 return on that $500 investment. So again, not an amazing return, but at least what we want you to feel confident in is that A, there could be a return, but B, that's not the point of this whole exercise. You're actually, in a way, you're paying. Even if you pay for it, if you paid for somebody to tell you this is your product market fit, that is worthwhile. That is worth money being spent. And I think that's the mentality that you need to have when going into this.
Yeah, it's definitely an investment. Whether or not it works out, I think it's worth it anyway, because it's going to save you time in the long run.
Yeah. So one of the next things, so we talked about the product that you're going to choose and how you're displaying that on your lead page. We talked about your marketing, which will involve some kind of Facebook ad. So again, you will have some marketing to test your messaging. And again, there's lots of experimentation. You can actually see how we've talked about experimentation in previous podcasts. But the next thing you need to test, not before, is actually your pricing. And how would you go about testing pricing, Herbert?
Well, hopefully you get a lot of free trials in, which means you speak to people, and you kind of got to test different price levels, higher price levels for some people, and maybe mid to lower price levels to see kind of what sticks and to find kind of an average price, so to say. I would hope that tutors are charging more than $20 an hour. I know it's a very competitive market, but I feel that tutors can charge more than that. So it's better to sell less high value customers than more low value customers, to be honest with you.
So I think this is something that I feel that some tutors might miss, is this concept of, so you are right in terms of a lower price typically means that people buy more of it, but up to a point, and it's not the perfectly linear kind of solution that you might think, but you have to think about it in terms of proportions, and what you're looking for is the sweet spot. Because, for example, we talked about a $20 price per class. Let's say that you had the same, so we talked about 500 visitors, 4 trials, 2 purchases, $640 return because I'm charging $20 a session. What if, out of those 4 trials, you test 2 different prices? One is $20 an hour and one is $40 an hour. Now let's say that 2 of those purchases are actually at the $40 an hour. Now you're getting twice the return for half the amount of work. So that's why it's so important. Now, maybe they balk at that, but that's still fine. At least you have tested your pricing with those 4 by offering 2 of them a low price at, say, $20 and another 2 at a high price of $40. Now, let's just say that the only 2 that buy are the ones that are $20 an hour. Well, at least you then know that my price has to be closer to $20 compared to $40. And so the next set of experiments, you might drop the price from $40 to maybe it's $35. But you probably don't want to suddenly go straight to $25 because it won't give you enough of a difference to know what you want. Because ideally you want your price as high as possible so that you can offer the best value and the most service to your customers.
Exactly.
Because the opposite is the opposite, right? The lower your prices, the less you can really invest in each student, and probably the less impact you're going to have on that person, the less committed they're going to have, they're going to be. And so there's a whole bunch of reasons why a low price is actually a really, really bad idea.
It's a super bad idea, and you can only go down to 0, right? There is a limit to decreasing your price, and you don't want to play in the low price field because it's just very difficult.
Yeah. And what you're offering, particularly if you're starting out, is you're offering your personality. There is only one of you, your uniqueness. That's why you're not selling at the lowest price, because you're not selling a system, you're selling a person in a way, your personality, your your kind of unique product market fit is what we're really looking for here. So you don't feel that you have to start at the bottom of the market because you're learning. I would say the opposite. The first thing you're trying to test is, what does my market initially perceive my value as? Now that can change over time. So if that's low initially, don't feel like that's you forever. But either way, you're just trying to learn something, and that's the point of this experiment. So we've talked about main stage. One of the things that I am so often confronted by, possibly a lot more so than even you, Herbert, because with LearnCube we provide, as I say, a virtual classroom made for language teaching and tutoring, and also a full all-in-one. We call it our online school like for an individual teacher, and online school premium for a school. So we're a how to deliver online tutoring. Now the number of people that come to us that have never delivered a single class but say, are you the right tool for me? I don't want to serve you because I want you to have a business first, and then we're kind of like in a service that you'll need once you kind of have some customers, particularly our online school, services. So what I see a lot of wasted time is how you deliver the class. What curriculum should you use? All of these things which are actually irrelevant until you have students.
A paying customer.
So one of the biggest things that I want to get across to anyone that's starting out is, don't start with how you're going to deliver your classes. Don't start with your curriculum. Don't start with fancy advertising, your logo, and all of these things. Simply start with the kind of process we're talking about here. Test the product. Your first test is the website. It is not the curriculum. Your second thing is about testing your marketing. It is not whether or not you're going to start with this grammar point or that grammar point, or you're going to offer these flyers or these worksheets and that kind of thing. That is not the thing that you need to experiment with first. It is your product market fit, your marketing funnel, and your pricing. And then we get into delivery, because delivery is all about retention, and that just means that people stay. So obviously if you have a bad service, people will leave. They will tell you it was a bad service. But that feedback is going to be really immediate and really, really obvious to you, hopefully, because people will just simply stop buying with you. That's the first indication that what you have is not serving the purpose. But that's my rant, and apologies for that, Herbert. Do you have any other thoughts on the delivery section? It's just we see it so often.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's about getting that feedback again from the services that you delivered, and hopefully customers will be open about their experience. And you need to adapt then your program, your curriculum, your way of facilitating the classes. And I guess another thing that a lot of new entrepreneurs have a challenge with is the payment. In order to solidify a business relationship, they're not a customer until they actually pay. And I know that we probably don't want to recommend this service, but it's the easiest and fastest way to get started with PayPal. I know you're not a fan, Alex, but no, I mean, to start off with.
I just want to clarify as well. So we're not recommending it because we don't think it's a great service. We actually think it charges extortionate fees. But the point here is not to test your payment gateway. Your point here is to test your product market fit. So I just see that as just part of the cost of you knowing what your business is. And if you're starting out, why don't we just make it easier for you and just say it's higher cost, but it's super easy to start, and we know that everyone's comfortable with paying on it. So that's why we suggest it. And you can choose something else in the future, but before you worry about credit cards and using, Stripe is, for example, the service we use for credit cards, PayPal we just find is a lot more universal and easier to get started with. So start with PayPal because you can basically, once you've got an account, it's very easy to start one, and then you just send a link with an invoice. So you don't even think, don't worry about what your accounting system is. That's not important until you have a business. Start with PayPal. You can create
payment.
You just capture the payment, and great. As soon as you've got one payment, you are in business. Yes. Until you have that payment, you are not a business. You are either a charity or your own hobby. The other thing is on tech. Like, of course, LearnCube would love to support any tutoring company or any tutoring entrepreneur. We do have a free tier. But actually, look, if you want to use Google Meet or Zoom or anything else, that's totally fine too. There's a way for you to deliver online tutoring. But if you also wanted, for example, if you're an English language teacher and you wanted a curriculum as well, we also offer a subscription for $38 per month, and you get both the technology, which is the virtual classroom, and you also get the curriculum already embedded in that virtual classroom. So that's, again, a much faster way for you to do it. And look, even if you join for 1 month while you're doing this experiment, which is all about that product market fit, you can at least say, I know what that would look like within that 1 month because I've spent my $500 in that month. I've got my 500 visitors in that month. I've got my 4 trials that I delivered through LearnCube, for example, and I've also now got paid for those while using a professional service. So that can all be done in 1 month, and then you can cancel all of these. Like Calendly was free. Lead Pages, you can start with their free trial. All of this you can know within a 4 to 6 week period, which costs you very little money.
Yeah.
So we've done a lot here today, Herbert. We've talked about the main stage, but what we haven't talked about is the backstage.
Yes, which is also very, very important, is to really build your foundations. So your organic channels of traffic to your landing page or website. And this takes time, and this is why we kind of said backstage, because this does not happen overnight. You're looking kind of minimum 6 months, really, to build a following or a community on your chosen social media platform. Again, this depends on where your audience is. That could be Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, possibly a YouTube channel with videos and educational content. But you need to start as soon as possible. The sooner the better. Yesterday, because time. You need time to build these channels.
Yeah. We talked about the goals of what the backstage of your marketing is, and we talk it again because it's behind the scenes. This is something that I think people get in reverse. A lot of people start with backstage because it's quieter. No one's seeing you. You're not having to put any money down. It's all free. But that's not, again, where we're wanting you to start your efforts, because it takes too long for you to get an answer. And you might be optimizing the wrong thing, whereas that's why we really focus you on the main stage of your marketing. But with this backstage, there's really 3 goals. You're wanting to legitimize your business. You want the ability to run ads. So, for example, you can't run ads, I don't believe, without a Facebook page, right?
No, you need a Facebook page in order to, verify that you're a real business, and in order to run ads.
And so we've got legitimize your business, ability to run ads, and then also basically to start your organic traffic. Like there's no ifs or buts about it like that. Those are the main goals. Now, we kind of looked at it again. We were like, but we definitely want to encourage as much creativity when you choose your different channels that you try out. So if you think that you can win on TikTok, brilliant, go for it. There's probably a lot less competition there. If you can nail it on Instagram, again, there may be fewer people than, say, on Facebook, because Facebook has become, I guess, the default social media. If you can make it happen in Twitter, brilliant. So we don't want to kind of say don't do those things or don't try and be creative. But if you don't have any preference, we would highly, highly recommend starting with Facebook. Why? Because it's got the easiest way for you to do the advertising experiment that we talked about with the main stage marketing part of this discussion. But it'll also verify that you're a genuine teacher. So as you build posts, the great thing about Facebook, actually, when I think about it, Herbert, is you can't fake it, right? You have a post, and that is time-stamped. So that's why people, when they look at your Facebook page, if they see 100 posts and they're all done in the last 100 days, they're like, well, you're definitely a startup business. Can I trust you? Whereas if you've already started your Facebook page 6 months ago and you see a post every month, I'm like, wow, okay. The fact that this person is at least stuck to a schedule shows me that they're consistent. It tells me a lot, right? Like I can just look at the timestamps and already I'm going consistent, professional, consistent voice, has a brand, has a personality that I like. Okay, these are great things. And then the second thing is about YouTube. Why? Because you can use video, and I'm going to definitely give the microphone to Herbert about video. But why is it important to have your own YouTube channel? Probably because you're going to need those YouTube videos on potentially your one-page landing page. You don't have to, but we would definitely encourage that because you can get your personality, your energy across and much better. But it's going to come into the Facebook page as well and the performance and ads. So Herbert, tell us all about how you would recommend somebody focus on the backstage part of their marketing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of video just because people really see who you are, and you can show much more of yourself and behind the scenes of your business than you can with just a photo. And it's just more authentic. But I know that a lot of tutors might have a bit of apprehension to get in front of the camera, but it really does pay off to be active on again, those social media platforms that you're choosing. And it doesn't necessarily have to be YouTube for video, because you can do video on all of those platforms that we discussed. But it's a great kind of main spot because it also acts like a Google search, right? So if you were to create educational content for your specific niche, and your specific niche Google's English lessons, or maybe business idioms for salespeople, whatever that is, and you created a video exactly on that topic, then it would show up on Google, and they would watch your YouTube video, and it acts as, a lead generator. And then they would go to your landing page, and if it interests them, then they would sign up for a free trial. So I think YouTube is a fantastic way, as you said, to legitimize your business, to provide engaging content, and a fantastic way in the medium to long run of creating organic traffic for your business.
Brilliant. So we have covered a lot today. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and again, thanks so much for coining these ideas. I don't know if you coined them or not, but I thought that they worked really brilliantly. This idea of you having in your marketing, you have a main stage and you have a backstage, particularly when you're starting out with your tutoring business. The first most important thing to get across is the main stage part, which is experiment to uncover your product market fit. The key things you need to figure out is whether or not there is demand and people want to buy your product and service. You need to create a marketing funnel to understand that, which will involve this one-pager, a call to action, and an ability to pay eventually after they've done a free trial. We talked about the delivery being, of course, important, but it only ever happens once you have a customer. So everything else has to happen before you worry about the delivery. You focus particularly on that front part of the funnel, which is, will somebody buy my service? And then it's all about the delivery is the retention bit. How can I make people love it so much that they tell other people about it and that they stay for longer? And then we talked about the backstage part of your marketing, which is all about building those strong organic channels early, but without getting wrapped up with them, because again, your focus is all about that main stage. But building up those organic channels and feeling really good about it. So I hope you've enjoyed today. Herbert, have I forgotten anything?
No, I don't think so. It was a great chat, Alex.
I really enjoyed it too, and I hope you have as well. If you'd like to learn more about LearnCube, for example, you can find us at www.learncube.com. Now, my accent's always a bit funny, so CUBE is what I mean, learncube.com. And you can learn about, particularly if you're starting out, it's more likely to be our virtual classroom product. But if you're more of a professional independent teacher, our online school Lite is probably the product you want to look at. And if you're a language school or tutoring business that's already a little bit more established and you're managing other tutors, you'll be looking at our online school Prep. premium solution. And if you're at that level as well, you could be very interested in what Herbert does. So Herbert, tell us a little bit about your business and who you help.
Absolutely. I mean, I run an advertising agency specialized in helping language schools and education businesses generate more leads and more enrollments for their programs via paid traffic. And yeah, we basically offer a done-for-you service where we take over a business's complete paid ad strategy and run that on a month-to-month business. To find out more, go to herbertgoza.com.
That's great. And what kinds of business stage do you work with, Herbert? Do you tend to work with like a minimum value or like a minimum size of business?
So I wouldn't say a minimum size of, I wouldn't say, for example, you have to have a minimum of 500 students or 300 teachers. We work with one-person businesses to networks of language schools. So it really depends, what stage of the business you're in. I would say that the minimum ad spend per month to make it feasible and to make sense in order to retain our services is $1,500 per month.
Fantastic. Also, the reason I bring that up is what we've talked about is often for newer people coming into into tutoring. I would highly recommend you start with doing your own marketing. So when you're starting out, please do not outsource your marketing to somebody else. No. You don't need to be the best marketer to get your first 20 customers, but you have to be able to get 20 customers before you can get anybody to do your marketing.
Exactly.
So that's one thing I wanted to make really clear out of today is don't tap Herbert just on the shoulder just yet. This is something that everybody will need to kind of go through and get right before they move on to that next stage of their marketing and business career.
Great advice, Alex.
Yeah. Well, I hope that we've offered value. The thing that we really want to do, this is obviously a free podcast, and we have other free events, including our Get More Students webinar, which we do once a month, which you can learn again more from learncube.com. But we offer this because we want to provide ideas, inspiration, and motivation to tutoring and language entrepreneurs. So make sure you hit the subscribe button. We do have these podcasts regularly. So if you hit subscribe, you're going to get a new shiny version as soon as it's out. So thanks again. Hit that subscribe button, and we look forward to hearing more from you soon.
See you in the next one.